How's it going, everybody? You know, I noticed something. I bought these lights and this backdrop, and I'm not even using it. It's just a weird prop now in all my videos. I don't know. I'll just leave it in. But anyway, today I woke up and I'm reading the news, and sure enough, what is everyone talking about? Morning Joe, MSNBC, and Donald Trump, they're feuding with each other. And I said, oh, celebrity gossip nonsense in politics. Just why is everybody always talking about Trump's tweets, and they can't let it go. So you know what I want to talk about today? I want to talk about fake news, fake media, fake influence, and how media personalities pretend to be more influential than they are and why they do it. Earlier this morning, I tweeted about journalists who buy fake Twitter followers, and they get almost no tweets, no replies, no likes, no engagement. And it got me thinking, you know what, I should talk about how fake influence is peddled and how these companies work. So let's get started. Before I do, I want to say I have talked about a lot of these issues in the past, but I think putting them all together in one video would be fairly helpful. And there's probably a lot of people who aren't familiar with these practices, so let's just do it. One of the things that a lot of these new media companies are doing is called digital ad rights buying. So that means they are buying the rights to views from another website. So let me explain how this works. First, have you ever seen a really crappy clickbait website where they'll say 25 photos of celebrities that will shock you? And then when you open the link, you'll see a photo, but every time you want to move on to the next photo, you have to load another page. A lot of companies will split up one news article into 3 articles. They'll break up one photo gallery into 25 different pages. And the reason they're doing this is that they're turning one person into 3, 5, 15, or even 25 unique views. Every time you load a new page, you are adding to their view count. Now, a website like celebritygossipgarbage.info, they can't sell, to any sponsor. Why would Coke want to advertise on this garbage clickbait website? Well, guess what? They wouldn't. So then why do these sites exist? Well, they do make some money from like Google Ad Network stuff. So, you can sign up for Google on your own, you can put the ads on your page, and you're getting a big slew of indirect advertisements targeting local districts and some national stuff, but, it could be like a random company. But the real money is with the big sponsors, like Coke or AT&T. So here's what happens. You see a premium brand like Vice, for instance. Everyone thinks Vice is super cool. So when they go to big companies like AT&T or Verizon or whatever and say, we're getting 50 million views and we're cool, they say, only 50 million though? It's not really worth it. So here's what these companies do. A company like Vice, and Vice has done this in the past, will go to one of these crappy little clickbait websites and buy the rights to their audience. They then take all of those clickbait viewer numbers and put them behind their brand. Now they can boast 20% more viewers because it's part of their ad network. Then they go to big sponsors, beer companies, telecoms, soda companies, candy bars, whatever, and say, we're not getting 50 million, we're getting 60 million. And they go, oh wow, 60 million, that's impressive. Now, I've actually talked to a higher up at what could be considered a progressive feminist digital media outlet who, we're friends, and they were contemplating whether or not they should engage in this practice. And ultimately what they said was, if we don't do it, we won't be competitive. Everyone else is doing it, so the viewer counts on their websites are going up and up and up, and they're attracting more sponsors, so we have to do the same thing. This is resulting in the creation of new clickbait garbage websites, and it's also fake views. It's not real. You're seeing these numbers from these digital media companies claiming they're getting tons of traffic, and they are not. They're buying the rights from other garbage companies. It is not that impressive, but for a long time, advertisers weren't aware of this practice. But now they're starting to catch on, and they're starting to realize that buying ads online isn't that valuable. Look back at the adpocalypse on YouTube. When advertisers were pulling off YouTube, it wasn't just about the controversial posts or racism or terrorism. While that may be the bulk of the story, there really is the issue of digital media buyers aren't getting a return on the advertisements they're buying, so they don't find it effective. And that's one of the reasons they pulled out. But there is another shady thing that these companies do, that these digital media companies, the fake news companies do, to try and appear more influential. This is significantly less shady in my opinion, but it's rather simple. A company, a digital media outlet, will write an article nobody wants to read your garbage article. So what do? Well, we wrote this article, it only got 10 views. What should we do? Well, they advertise that article on Facebook. You may have noticed there are videos and there are posts, there are stories on Facebook where they're sponsored, and you'll see a new digital media outlet promoting their article. They can do this, and they can spend a few $1,000s and maybe even get a couple 100,000 views. When you look at the article, when you look at the analytics, it's not going to tell you that it came from a sponsored post on Facebook. The company can then take that article and go to advertisers and say, look at this. We just wrote an article that got 1 million views, all organic. Most of it came from Facebook, and they go, wow, that's influence. And so these advertisers then think, you know what? I want to get 1 million views too. So a company that's trying to promote a product will come to these digital media outlets and say, put my advertisement on your page so that when you get 1 million views, then people see my product too. But what these companies don't realize is that these articles aren't actually influential at all. These videos aren't actually influential. The media companies paid sometimes tens of thousands of dollars to make it appear like their article gets organic traffic, when in reality, it is a promoted Google, Facebook, or YouTube post, meaning the views, they're not real. In fact, when they do this, the retention and the engagement is very, very low. But companies are smart. They'll omit that. They'll go to a meeting and say, we just made a video that got 2 million views on Facebook. Advertisers like the sound of that, don't they? And again, they're starting to wise up to this not being true, but think about, at the same time, what the average user feels when they see a video with millions of views. They think, wow, people must really like this. Now, it's long been known that the more views you have, the more followers you have, the more likely it is that someone will follow or like your profile. Now, to the beautiful finale. Fake Twitter followers, journalists, why they do it, how they're doing it. You can just Google search buy fake followers. It's really, really easy, and a lot of people do it. There are a few decently mid-profile, I don't want to say high profile, but moderately well-known journalists I know of that one day, they had about 20,000 Twitter followers, and they would get 2 to 10 retweets on their posts. Well, one day I checked their account and they had 140,000. And I said, wow, something must have happened in the press to make you this well-known. To gain 120,000 Twitter followers seemingly overnight, I mean, it's over the course of a few days, but wow, that's really quickly. Oh, but their posts are still only getting a couple retweets. So how is it then that somebody will actively seek out your profile, follow you, but then completely ignore everything you're posting? It seems weird, doesn't it? So if you look at my Twitter account, you can see that I've got today around 140,000 Twitter followers. And if you look at any one of my posts, they'll have between 50 and even a couple hundred retweets with a lot of engagement. I've got people who tweet at me interesting comments. They will comment on some of my posts, and there's a good back and forth. And there's a lot of trolls and critics who attack me all the time. There's weird, for some reason, homophobic and death threats, but I guess that's the internet. So I kind of just say, yeah, another day on the internet, I guess. But there's a lot of engagement, love and hate. So it's interesting then to see high-profile, well-paid journalists with a ton of followers getting no interactions. There are some accounts that have over millions of followers, 1 million plus followers, that get almost no interaction. And you have to wonder, how do people organically gain followers but not engagement? So the big question is, why do they do it? Well, like I said before, it is a known fact that if you have more followers and more viewers, people are more likely to follow you. There's like an appearance of credibility, and so this is why people do it. It doesn't really benefit you other than that, at least when it comes to actually being on the social platform. But there's another really big reason, and it's that people who are unaware of this practice want to pay for it. A few years ago, I was in a meeting, and we were talking about putting together a documentary. And one of the producers looked at me and said, we've got this high-profile activist that wants to work with us. They've got 200,000 Twitter followers. We need to work with them. That's great marketing. And I said, oh, okay, 200,000 followers, right? So I ran a Twitter audit. There are several services that will allow you to audit a profile to see if their followers are real or fake. And sure enough, 80% fake. I actually had more Twitter followers than they did. And so I had to explain to these producers, Those followers are not real, and if they are, they're not engaged. When Twitter first started, there were a lot of people that used it like a social platform. They would post, I'm going to the movies, I'm going to the mall, and you were supposed to follow your friends and see what they were doing. But sure enough, the real purpose of Twitter, the real useful tool, was news. It's a great newswire where we can see things happen in real time, and we can get stories delivered to us, and we can follow influential and charismatic personalities. That means most people aren't going to upload a profile picture. They're not going to make an interesting username. They're probably never really going to tweet, retweet, like, or engage at all. So the reality is, the only true indicator of whether or not someone has fake followers is if their follower count jumps significantly very quickly with no interaction, with no engagement. Again, if someone is going to seek you out and follow you, that typically means they're interested in what you're doing and they're not just going to follow you and then ignore you. Some people do. Most people wouldn't do that. So you have to keep in mind, it's not so simple. Sometimes there are real profiles that have a ton of followers and no engagement simply because it's a famous person and people just want to see what they say and not really engage on Twitter. There's another thing to keep in mind is that many of these bot farms, these companies that make fake accounts, will automatically have these accounts follow high-profile individuals to make it look like they're interested in actually working with Twitter, like they're actually engaging on the platform. If you see a Twitter account and you click it and they're following nobody, then the average person's like, I don't know, what is this? It's weird. So typically what they'll do is they'll have the bot follow some of the recommendations, and this means high-profile personalities like the president or presidential candidates will have a large portion of fake followers. All in all, media companies, they do shady things to appear more influential. Journalists, personalities, they do shady things to appear more influential. What we're looking at is a house of cards. A lot of the views are fake. A lot of the followers are fake. The media industry is just a big bubble. So these companies are being forced to compete with each other, and instead of actually generating interesting content that builds a viewership, they just inflate their follower count or their views through unethical means. That way they can just act like they're doing better than their competition. But here's the part where you tell me what you think. Comment below. What do you think? Do you know of any instances where this stuff has happened? Do you have any suspicions about Twitter users or anything like that? Comment. Let's talk about it. If you like the video, click the like button. Stay tuned. New videos every day at 4 p.m. If you want to help support the work that I do, go to patreon.com/Timcast. You can follow me on Twitter @Timcast. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.